Have you ever been confused about your hormones, wondering what the heck are they doing for you? Maybe even you have had your symptoms dismissed by your doctor because they're like, oh, well, you look great, or it's just normal for your age, or maybe we should put you on an antidepressant. So nothing frustrates me more. And in today's episode, we're really going to dig deep into this issue. So, with a dear colleague that I have lectured with on stage a number of times, and her name is Dr. Tara Scott. You will see how she became the hormone guru. That is her handle. We call it that. Can we call it that? I don't know. Maybe we can, but it is her handle on Instagram and social media and TikTok. And she's been doing some really great thing. And she has created the Hormone Guru Academy. She has been a lecturer on at physicians conferences, and that's where I met her. She's also done a TEDx talk educating for over 10 years. She's pretty fun. She's also a OBGYN and has done studies in functional medicine and integrative medicine. So like me, you can imagine we really enjoy the conversation. We want women to feel empowered, and that is our goal from today's conversation as well. I know you're going to love it, so stay tuned. Let me bring her on. Well, welcome, Tara, to the Girlfriend Doctor Show. I have been trying to get you on the show for like years. I really have. And then I saw you in, where were we? Miami or
Florida, yeah, somewhere in Florida,
Florida,
yeah.
somewhere in Florida. And I was like, I cornered you. I'm like, Tara, you got to get on my show. Come on now. I know you're a busy woman. You are busy. You are busy doing really, I say God's work. You're doing amazing stuff.
Thank you. Well, congratulations on 2 million downloads. That's so exciting. Yes.
It is very humbling and exciting, but I've been doing this a long time. And now I'm just like, I just want to talk about the Camino de Santiago. Everyone listening lately is hearing me talk about it. And also like part of my reason for doing it was to celebrate menopause, to celebrate the journey. So I would love to talk with you about your journey through you're like in perimenopause. So you are not post-menopause yet. But like this journey as an OBGYN, discovering the symptoms, dealing with them for patients, but for yourself, like how has it been for you?
Well, I think that's part of the reason I ended up specializing in this because I've had hormone issues since a teenager, and then I went on to have endometriosis through surgeries for that, infertility, never conceived without fertility medications. So, the first one was Clomid, then I had twins via IVF, and so all kinds of hormonal issues. So, once you're done with fertility, there's nothing for a hormone person until menopause. So, I think that led me down this pathway to learn about progesterone deficiency and all the ups and downs of estrogen and adrenal hormones. So, I've been in that late perimenopausal phase of skipping periods for the last 7, 8 years when statistically it's supposed to be 1 to 3 years. So it's a roller coaster. I had, I think, 4 periods last year, two so far this year, and I can't wait to be able to say I'm menopausal, but it hasn't happened for me yet. So
Well,
then
we will celebrate together. If we have to do it, we can do it in person or do it virtually.
yeah, that would, and as you know, it's like the ups and downs of I have estrogen, I don't have estrogen, and you constantly, as soon as oh, okay, I'm going to get some blood work or I'm going to do some testing, and then by the time you get the results back, things have changed again.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
it's for me. I mean, it's been a learning experience to be able to help people, obviously, but it hasn't been my fate. I felt good before this all started, like in my early 40s.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think this is the biggest thing because, like, the whole perimenopause is, we're throwing around that term a lot, meaning the time leading up to your 12 months without a period and then don't have any more periods. We're calling this perimenopause. I really like it to be the time around menopause. I mean, it's just the terminology is bad, but this perimenopause time is, as physicians and working with patients too, is confusing. Okay, when do I test? What am I testing? What do I need to do to stabilize your hormones? And so like for you, what was the first thing that you did in addressing your symptoms or is addressing the irregular cycles?
Yeah, and I think for patients, that's where they're not getting the help they need is perimenopause. And thankfully, there's a lot in the
Right.
media. Halle Berry and Gwyneth Paltrow have gone through menopause, so it's getting more attention. But the perimenopause, or as you know, where estrogen can be higher and progesterone lower, it was the sleep deprivation, it was the fatigue, it was the
Anxiety, mood swings.
Yes, 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 and I am not I feel like I'm usually pretty stable, but, having I went and thought, "Well, am I depressed? Do I need to get a non-antidepressant?" But it was really just my hormones. So first, starting traditionally with blood testing, we like to test, 3 weeks after the first day of your period, typically between day 19, 20, and 21, and sometimes that's enough to give us a picture of what's going on. I started first taking progesterone. We have FDA approved micronized progesterone that comes in generic, that's covered by insurance. So, I don't see the hesitation for a lot of people to worry about prescribing that. But that was a game changer. The first day that I took that, I slept 6 hours without interruption, and I hadn't done that for ages. And, as a former OB, we wreck our sleeps when we're doing deliveries, and I have never really recovered from that. If I don't get my sleep, I'm really not functioning to my best ability the next day. So that was the first thing that was really the problem.
The sleep, and then again, like, that whole cascade, I was think going from, not making enough melatonin, but before you get to that stage, you're not making enough serotonin because we make melatonin from serotonin, and we need tryptophan to do that, but without progesterone, we have less tryptophan available. So tryptophan, I mean, if I found, I mean, it took me years to figure this out as you keep going through the research and getting aha moments. It was a big aha moment for me when I read in the research that that progesterone keeps tryptophan from degrading. So when you have lower levels of progesterone, then you have less tryptophan, which we need for serotonin, which we need for melatonin. So the anxiety and the sleep, it's what our perimenopausal women, our women in their 30s are coming into us, and fixing the adrenals and increasing progesterone are two things too that like I usually start with first.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's where the word really needs to get out for these women that could be for 20 years, from 30 to 50, that are not, oh, you're not menopausal, you don't need anything yet until you're still having periods. I hear that a lot from patients. Well, my doctor said you're still having periods, so you're fine.
Right.
And you could be having regular period. I saw a patient just today who is still having completely regular period, but rock bottom estrogen, anxiety through the roof, and debilitating. And so, but she's 48, so it's not that unusual. But if she would have just waited for her periods to change, it would maybe be another 5 years till she came in.
And then by then we know the hippocampus is shrinking, the bones are becoming weaker. So we really want to get on board with that. So with like the concept with those irregular periods, it is a challenge to dose progesterone. I'm curious what you do, what you're doing, what you do for your patients, and how you like regulate. We're putting them on progesterone. We want to get those periods regulated. We want to get your moods improved, but like your periods all over the place. How do you kind of navigate that?
That's definitely a challenging
It is.
situation. And one of the things that I have learned along the way, and I even looked at 4 types of testing in a patient. We did blood testing every day, we did urine testing every day, and we did saliva testing every day. And one thing I learned is that progesterone levels are just very erratic. Unless you're talking about endogenous luteal levels, trying to micromanage levels of oral supplementation is just it's not always something you can accomplish. So like you said, we're going by their symptoms, we're going by how heavy are their periods, are they sleeping okay, what is the cycle length, are they skipping, and that kind of thing. And so for the most part, I try to identify with each patient, what are your symptoms of high estrogen, what are your symptoms of low, what are your symptoms of low progesterone, so that they can think, oh, well, I have a lot of breast tenderness this month. This must be a high estrogen month. And so that there's not really a sliding scale, but they can at least understand the nature of what we're going through. So maybe they're a little bit more patient, because I haven't found a magic thing to really eradicate that craziness,
Hmm.
but to
Hmm.
try to mitigate the symptoms to make them better as you mentioned, we have to make sure we're addressing the adrenals because it could just be a cortisol issue that's really causing a lot of symptoms. And as you know, the gut and the thyroid and everything else along with
Toxic
it.
burden. Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Stress and past traumas and everything else that, we're not taught as traditional doctors to look into. Yes. So,
That's so true. Yeah, so the timing of progesterone can be such a challenge. I think for me, when the periods are erratic and they're causing problems, it is oftentimes I'll have them just stay on the progesterone for 2 months straight, and then stop if they don't have a period in 10 days. Go ahead and start again. For use it for 21 days or so, and then 21 to 30 days, depending on how they're feeling, and then stop and see, or just continue using it till their next period. And it be, because it's that timing, it is confusing. It is confusing. So those listening in perimenopause, I know it's confusing. It's confusing for us. It's confusing for you. It's just kind of, again, listening to your body, trusting what works well for you. And some people, I mean, very different experiences.
and the oral progesterone we know is a totally different molecule than estrogen, for example, and it's metabolized very quickly. So it's just not a great form of administration, but that's what we have. So sometimes I have to give people a little topical along with their oral because the oral just doesn't cut balancing out these high erratic levels of estrogen. And so they're still having a lot of high estrogen symptoms. And sometimes, I mean, I even had to do that with myself, take the oral and then also take the topical to try to regulate that crazy bleeding.
Oh my God. And you don't know this, but like one of my products is my balance cream. So it's topical USP, progesterone with pregnenolone and
Oh, okay.
tripeptide, which is anti-aging for skin tightening and get rid of age spots. But the progesterone pregnenolone, because I found too in my own story, oral progesterone, great for sleep, too much, I'm not waking up alert
Yes.
and rested. But using so I use my oral at night, the nights I use it, and then the cream during the day is kind of part of my beauty regimen, but it's really helping my hormones and my brain. So pregnenolone and progesterone. So that combination works great. Also, I agree. Or when you need the oral progesterone for sleep or for endometrial protection.
Yeah, that's true. So that's a great combination because a lot of people are stressed and a lot of people have highs and lows in progesterone and cortisol as well. So the pregnenolone is a great, I mean, we don't have a ton of people studying it, but I think it's a really great, anecdotally, I've used it for a long time and I've had really great results with our patients.
Yeah, and both men and women, right? To be able to use that in both men and women, the progesterone and pregnenolone for neuroprotection, for memory, mood, just makes me nicer. I mean, I think I'm nice anyway, but
Are.
my daughter will argue with that statement. So speaking of kids and menopause and perimenopause, we're talking about you are now an empty nester. What is that like?
It's so, it's bittersweet for me because I mean, my goal in life was to be a mom because my parents were foreign and we just had different kind of relationships, they had a different relationship with their parents, so they didn't have that close emotional bond and they moved out of the country when I turned 21 and lived, that was before cell phones and email and everything. So I was kind of, my sisters and I were kind of alone. So
Wait, wait,
my
wait. I just have to pause on that. I mean, like you can do that. Like as soon as my daughter turns 21, I'm going then. That's it. I'm going.
Imagine my younger sister had to get a ride to college. Someone had to take her to college for the first time. I would, and now I think we overparent probably, right? We're like totally so, and I probably did go over a little overboard and was at everything and on the cross country coach and this head swim timer and on the board of show choir, doing all this stuff because I was trying to, go the other way from what my experience was. So to me, I'm super proud they're all working jobs and everything, but I think when we're talking about the holidays, it's sad because they're gonna they can't they may not be able to get time off, right? And one of mine got married and she's in California, so that's, far away. So it's like now she has to worry about and her in-laws are here. So she, comes home, but still she's got to worry about all these families and visiting her, everybody. And so the families kind of spread apart. So that's the sad part.
And
But it's kind of nice too. Like I was like, this is the first year I don't have to worry about winter break, spring break. I can plan a trip whenever I want.
oh my gosh, there's so much freedom in that. And, sometimes, in working with women, especially through menopause and then empty nesting, it's you have this space for yourself. So, like, in this, like, you have, like, oftentimes finding being able to fill the space. And when you first became empty nester, like, just what do like, there's so many experiences. I think of the space I felt in my walk on the Camino, just to be in my head, to be in my thoughts, and to have that freedom to just be honestly taking care of me. I got the explosion picture again on. I don't know how I create that fireworks image on this, but anyway, y'all, if you're watching on YouTube, you will see that. So, sure.
Sometimes if I go thumbs up, then I get the balloons. I don't know if it will happen.
So funny.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the sense that, your life's when you're a young mom and working, it's so hard to manage everything and you have no time to yourself. And so I think in that instance, it's nice to have that time to self-care and to do things. And as you mentioned, I do love to travel as well and to schedule more things. And, like I started playing golf again this summer. And I used to play all the time with my dad growing up and even through college, but haven't since I had kids. So trying to play golf, picking up pickleball, all these things that I'm trying to do, more activities instead of just, work and then take care of kids and go to their activities.
Go to their events and everything. And which is, I mean, it's so much fun, but there's like, and then that changes and then you have to replace it. So what you're doing is filling in the space, like with
Yeah.
something for you that you're enjoying doing. So that is a very positive. I mean, that's just so great. And then what about like now with just being able to um like for cooking for yourself or you know eating for yourself and what are you doing? Are you good at cooking at home or do you find like you go out more?
I'm actually really good at cooking. I love to
Yeah.
cook and I think I'm a good cook and I have my herbs all grown, growing outside. So I have all these fresh herbs. And so I like to pretend like I'm on that show Chopped. What can I make out of these five ingredients, or whatever or something. But I do a pretty good job. I do plan out
I'm
my
coming to
meals.
your house, Tara. I'm coming to your house.
Anytime. I love to cook. And so I try, I have to plan because I don't eat any gluten. I don't eat any dairy. And so I can't eat on the fly very easily. So I do on Sunday, well, I make my chicken salad for the week that I'm going to pack my lunch. And then every night I'm planning, okay, this on this day, this on this day. I was doing for a while those like the Hello Fresh or the Sun Basket. I still do a little of that, but I found that, you know what, I would rather just kind of do my own thing. Like sometimes they'd send it and I'd be like, I'm not going to make that. I'm going to make something else out of these ingredients.
Mhm.
And so I do still cook and I like to do that. And I like to be kind of in control of what I cook. But on the weekends, then maybe I'll go out, one of the nights or go out with friends or whatever. But I enjoy that process for me. And I feel better when I'm eating, good food.
Yeah, your home cooking for sure. And then plus your spices. And what's your favorite spice?
Well, right now, like my sage is amazing, but I'm still running out of things to do with that and the rosemary and the basil. So, but I really like just, your basic salt, pepper, garlic, paprika, those kind of things. But the fresh herbs, I made cod, and I made an herb butter. So I just took some butter and then put in the mini food processor some oregano, fresh thyme, not any rosemary, but some basil and some sage, and chopped it up and pulsed it, and then just spread it on the cod with a slice of lemon and baked it. And it was so good.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. And when it makes something like that, do you make extra to keep in the fridge, like extra of that butter puree?
You know what? I put it on green beans. I steamed green beans and put it on that. But I should have made more of it. You're right, but it's so fresh with the herbs. And then my daughter,
Okay.
she lives in Cleveland, which is about half an hour. She happened to be in town, so I saved some for her to eat. And so if I'm making like a stir fry, then I'll make sure like, okay, I'm making this and I might make extra. So if I have a late office day, I can just warm that up. And so, yeah, I mean, I cook pretty simply. I don't usually get it. One day I tried to make pasticcio with lamb, gluten-free, dairy-free. So pasticcio, I don't know if you know what it is. It's like
It's
a Greek
Greek.
lasagna. Yes. And so that was such a big ordeal. I was all day cooking because you have to cook the pasta, then you have to cook the bechamel sauce, and then I had to make that dairy-free. And then well, although I did use
Oh my gosh,
pecorino
I
romano.
hope you like videoed that or wrote that down because I would like a dairy-free bechamel sauce.
Well, I did soy milk, which was thick enough, and I did pecorino romano, which is sheep's milk, which I can have, and it came out really good. It was
Huh.
good, and I can have butter too. So yeah.
Oh, that sounds amazing. You know, the original physicians to the kings prepared their food, right? So food is medicine. So
Oh,
it really is like that. Food is medicine and using it in your life and incorporating it, it's powerful. Now, how about like with relationships now in perimenopause, menopause? Did you have mood swings issues? Was there, I was telling my client, if you hate your husband only 2 weeks out of the month, it's your hormones, not necessarily your husband, but maybe it is.
yeah. Well, so our situation, yeah, I don't remember if we talked about that, but we had an accident, and so my marriage didn't survive that trauma. And so after 30 years together, yeah, he left. And so my family was in a plane crash, and my daughter was injured, and he was injured. And so it kind of changed a lot of the dynamics. And so after that, then it was coinciding with when everyone went to college. So that was really my struggle then, being newly separated and then trying to deal with everyone being at college. So, but now I'm in a great relationship, and so that has been a kind of a new thing and kind of an enjoying thing. But I certainly can see how hormone fluctuations absolutely did make a difference. For me, hormone replacement therapy worked. Possibly husband replacement therapy also is going to be a good thing. So, but I mean, I do see how it can affect a lot of things for everybody differently. And so there were a lot of other stressors that went along with that. But I think, and that makes this time of life really high. Actually, what I didn't realize is that at empty nester, that is a high divorce rate. And so my sister's a psychologist, and she's like, "You made it through the launch of the kids," but then, it was a couple years after that, because she had known how things were. So
But also the trauma of an accident like that, did you feel the cortisol, oxytocin disconnect? Like that PTSD driving cortisol to adrenal fatigue, suppressing oxytocin, the physiology of disconnect. Did you experience I know intellectually I love him, loved him, I don't feel it. I experienced that post my trauma. And
yes,
so I
I didn't know
definitely
what it
felt
was.
it. Didn't know
And
what it was until I was
actually,
able
until
to
I
see it.
sat in your lecture in February. And so then I was like, oh,
That's
yeah,
what happened to me.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
part of it.
And I think, I thought, well, I haven't had a physical until I had a physical trauma. Then I was like, oh, these things in the past were traumas that I didn't realize. And so now, although I'm not an expert on trauma, I'm really trying to recognize and ask those questions of patients and to make sure to put those pieces together.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's important looking at that and seeing. And so also for me, post-traumatically and post-divorce, that space, one of the reason I asked it is when my kids initially were 1 week, 1 week with my ex and 1 week with me, to that week that I was alone, because again, I still have a crazy household with my daughter and her friends coming over all the time, and we've got horses. It's really busy. I don't have space. I was really happy for my space walking on the Camino, I guarantee you. But that time when it was just me alone in the house, that like space initially was like, oh, I'm going to enjoy this. But it was like I felt such a void until like there was a physiologic shift. So I was curious about that too.
Yeah, I think for me, that was I mean, it happened sort of at the same time, but I missed the kids. I missed that so much more because I think I dove into the kids when I had kids. I mean, and I probably put them before my marriage, which you shouldn't do, but I did, and that probably contributed to everything. And so, not probably, I did. I did because I think I was so desperate to get pregnant. I had all the infertility that I was just like, when I had them, I made them, I put them above everybody else. And so, I think that void was so big for me when they all left for college, and not even the college because they're still kind of coming back the first couple years. It was more when they, didn't need to come back because they had apartments or whatever. So that was harder. And so, but I saw it as a time to really invest in some new friendships, and some women at the same stage and the same, marital situations. And I've gotten some great friendships and, been able to enjoy some new experiences that way.
That is awesome. I mean, that's what we need to do to improve the quality of our life, and relationships, I think is an
Sisterhood.
essential
Yes.
ingredient.
Yes. For sure.
Essential, essential. So what is like when it comes to, hormones, so many women do get dismissed by their doctors and told, well, we can't test your hormone. I'm seeing this, social media hormone discussions. All right. You can't test, you can't test hormones. Well, that's ridiculous if your doctor tells you we can test hormones. What do you think about that?
And as a traditionally trained OB, we're not taught to do that at all. We are taught how to test hormones to rule out PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome. We are taught to test hormones for infertility. So, why are the testing not appropriate for other times of the cycle? There's actually quite a bit of data. And actually, I did present a poster at NAMS, the North American Menopause Society, a couple years ago, just about testing levels to prevent breast cancer. And I found several studies saying your premenopausal and postmenopausal blood testing levels can predict risk for osteoporosis, can predict risk for response to aromatase inhibitors, for breast cancer risk. And so there is data out there. We're just not taught. And if you think about how confusing and how much time you've spent learning what we do now, it's overwhelming. So I think they just kind of throw their hands up and say, we don't test. They fluctuate too much. And you hear that. And I'll tell you that before I was integrative and functional, I repeated some of those things that I heard that were said. Oh, you don't need progesterone if you don't have a uterus, because that's what I heard. I couldn't back it up with data, but that's what I heard. And that's what I believed until patients opened my eyes. I started learning. So I explained to them, yes, that is true. The hormones do fluctuate. That's why we're intentional about what day we want you to go in relation to where you are in your cycle. And that's why we test this and this and this. And we look at trends and we look at, yes, they can change. And so I have been testing hormones for 20 plus years and have found it very helpful. And not to mention, I can't remember a patient telling me it wasn't covered on their insurance unless they had like a high deductible. Like they haven't come back and said, you ordered all this unnecessary tests and it wasn't covered. So if it's covered and it's benefiting the patient and they feel like it's helping, I don't know why there would be a problem to do it, even if nobody's done that study to make that protocol,
Yeah,
you
no,
know?
I agree with you, but I am curious, what did you find that premenopausally indicated risk for breast cancer in the blood work?
Yeah, so there was just a few studies. A couple of the studies were done on urine metabolites, but it was done before 2015, and the assays were different. And so we now have a dried urine test, which is a little bit more accurate than what we had before, which was the 24-hour urine. And so the higher urinary metabolites corresponded with lower breast cancer diagnosis, which was interesting. High serum testosterone, high luteal estradiol, which is what we're looking for. And there was a small study that did say that lower progesterone levels in the luteal phase were inversely proportional with risk. So if you have lower progesterone, increased risk. Some of those studies, though, they didn't document when they did the studies. They weren't always mid-luteal and they were follicular. So in the follicular phase before ovulation, you're always going to have low progesterone. But even one study said that high follicular estradiol, which does make sense that it would be increased risk of breast cancer because you're getting all that estrogen stimulated growth without that balancing progesterone in the follicular phase. So the problem is there weren't like 20 studies that all looked at luteal levels. There were a handful, I think I'm going to say maybe 10 or 15 studies, not a lot. And not all of them were done at the same time. So, but there were studies to say that yes, your luteal estradiol levels and progesterone levels can extrapolate risk.
I think that's fascinating. And then the estrogen metabolites, being able now to look at the methoxyestrone metabolites. So 2, 4, and 16. So elevated, and you're finding too, elevated levels of 4 and 16 are associated with higher breast cancer. I think it's especially important when people are on hormonal therapy that we look at those urinary metabolites of estrogen.
I agree. I think it's all great information. And, like you said, you're hearing from patients that are being dismissed, but you're also seeing some of our traditional counterparts putting videos up saying, if you're going to a provider that says you need a Dutch test, unfollow immediately. Do not go to them because they're just trying to get your money. And I was like, I wish I got money from that, but I don't
Yeah,
get
yeah,
any, you know, but I mean, so there's that dialogue going on. So it's really confusing for patients too. And so I do all types of testing. I don't say this one is the end all be all. You have to do this part. I use a
yeah,
lot of traditional serum testing
yeah,
on especially patients who are still cycling.
yeah.
So I think, if you think about testing, the endocrine society guidelines for men is test hormone levels, give testosterone, and monitor hormone levels. The protocol for transgender hormone therapy is test hormone levels, give hormones, monitor. But the protocol for women is don't test hormones. They're too variable. Just give hormones and don't monitor. There's no science behind it.
Ugh, when you make that point, that is powerful. That is ridiculous. That is like, it's I tell you, this is misogynistic. These part, I mean, it's terrible. It really is. It really is terrible. That, I mean, honestly, we've seen it through the insurance coverage of women's specific procedures versus men specific procedures. We've seen it all throughout the years, and
Testosterone
it
too, covered for men, not for women,
not
you
for
know?
women, right? And these are our hormones. Like if we cover insulin, we should cover hormones.
Yes.
So, it's the same thing. Our body's not producing it. We need to support it. Um, Fascinating. Really, I mean, it is a fascinating world that we're living in. And then just the concepts of hormonal management. And we're learning. And when it comes to testing, I mean, the truth is there's no perfect hormonal test. So you've got to look at what we have, serum, um, urine, saliva. I mean, it's telling us something, but it's so cool to know that your saliva has your hormones in it. Your urine has your hormones in it. I mean, like, okay, what are we peeing down the drain all these years, right? Like, it's important to understand our body is so intelligent, but hormones are energetic molecules. Until we're able to accurately assess them energetically, I think we're always, you know, fine tuning and using the art of medicine. And so that distinguishes you, among other physicians that are just like following those, I'm going to say insurance mafiosa medicine protocols.
Yes, and I mean, we've been in practice about the same amount of time. Science has come a long way, and we do have more data. We have better assays for measuring things, and the patients are driving it with social media, with internet, with just being interconnected with more people because of the internet. I mean, the patients are driving this. I mean, I'm seeing more and more people in their 20s and 30s coming in and saying, I want my hormones checked. So I love that.
Yeah, yep, and it's owning it, like, "Okay, what am I feeling my best, and let me know," like, understanding what's going on, are also preventing problems, right? An ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure, and so, for myself as a mom of 4 daughters, it's, important to me, like, healthy menstrual cycles, healthy, you know, hopefully pregnancies, more pregnancies. I just wanna be a great grandmother, that's what I wanna be, Tara.
Yeah, yeah, that'll be a fun time when it's time for me. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh my gosh, so fun, so fun. Being a grandma's been the best thing. I get to see her this weekend, so I can't wait. Totally, there really is something special about being grandma. And this goes back to keeping the family close. One of the things from travel, you're a fellow traveler, and it is that when you see, multi-generational households, and this is something that science is continuing to prove that multi-generational households have healthier households. The kids have less addiction, have, more, the family itself, better longevity, less mental disease and illness, again, assuming healthy family units. But the multi-generational, I read this recently, I look for research to support me. And but it is that having a grandmother in the house, having exposure to a grandma is really good. I text that to my daughter.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's mainstream everywhere else, except for the United States.
Right.
In both of my cultures, Hispanic culture and Indian culture, that's the given. My grandmother lived with us when I was in high school.
Yes. Yep. And it's a blessing, right? It is such a blessing. So I am voting for that too. So what are you up to now? What are you up to? Where can people follow you, catch up with you, see you as a physician? Tell
Yeah,
our
so
audience.
we're getting into a busy season for conferences, so there's a lot coming on. I'll be speaking in LA, and then I'm headed to Texas, and I think you are too. And then I'm going to Kuala Lumpur and then Australia this fall. So I'm
What?
super excited about that. Yes. Not a lot of downtime, that's for work to speak. So now I won't get to do a ton while I'm there. I think I have a couple days in Australia that I don't have to work in between. So that's always a perk. We just updated the website, Dr. Tara Scott, and so you can check things out there. I actually also got a patent on my Hormone Guru, so I'm officially now patented just for the name, and just for the education. So I don't have a product or anything, but yeah, so that was an
Congratulations.
exciting.
That's a big deal. Do you know less than 3% of patents are for women, let alone sole
Wow.
women-owned companies? Less than 3%.
Wow.
So I would say welcome to the club. I mean, but that's amazing. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, it wasn't an easy thing, and I did apply for it on my own, and then I had to finally break down and hire a lawyer because there was something that I didn't do correctly or whatever, and then they got it through, so that was nice. Yeah, and on social media, then I'm using my Hormone Guru or Hormone Guru MD. They can follow me on Instagram or TikTok there as well.
Yeah, I think that's where I first came across you on TikTok. You were doing your
Oh, really?
hormone gurus. Yeah, I think so. It was your fun. It was amazing. And I was like, okay, good information. Sometimes you hear things, you're like, okay, really
Yeah.
good information. So for my audience, go ahead and follow Tara Scott. So, and is it drtarascott.com for your website?
Yes. Yeah.
Doctor, so Dr. Tara, TARSCOTT.com. Check her out there, but definitely follow her on social media at the Hormone Guru. So, one final question I have for you as we close, you have been a big fan. I just have to bring this up because you've been a big fan of Jolva, using my Jolva product and over vaginal estrogen. And I would love for you to share with the audience why.
Well, there's a couple reasons. One is because you can get it, right? And so if you are having symptoms of vaginal dryness, urinary irritation, painful intercourse, you can't find a provider to work with you. You can order it on Amazon. So I've ordered it from your site, but I've also ordered it separately on Amazon, which is nice. Who doesn't love next day shipping, right? And so, and I don't ask me to recite all the products, but it's such a nice emollient, hydrating cream. And so when you're going through all those changes of even before menopause, if you have low adrenal function, low DHEA, you're going to have vaginal dryness, painful intercourse, and even sometimes problems with libido, which I've had patients tell me that their climax was so much better with Jolva. Their sex was so much better. Their libido was so much better because we know there's data that says DHEA helps all phases of the sexual response cycle. When women go to their gynecologist, what they're given is either Premarin vaginal cream, which I don't love, or maybe estrase, which is estradiol. And so we know that embryologically, the lower third of the vagina comes from the urogenital sinus, which is a more androgen derived tissue. So what that means in English is that testosterone is more at play at skin and the lower third of the vagina. So DHEA is more similar to testosterone than estrogen. And then if you have problems higher up, then estrogen would be helpful. So I always find that DHEA in my patients is much better for all of those vaginal complaints. So I love that. I love the base. I love the packaging. I love that I can get it on Amazon, or I've also ordered it at your site as well. And so if you are having those symptoms, that you can, take matters into your own hand. I don't know that there's any harm to taking vaginal DHEA. I've scoured the literature. It doesn't make you have postmenopausal bleeding. It doesn't stimulate the uterine lining. It doesn't stimulate any breast issues. So it's a completely safe, very effective hormone, and it's my preference for any vaginal symptoms, really.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much
You
for
should have recorded that for a commercial, right?
Oh my gosh, I know I'm gonna have to excise that out for a commercial. That was amazing. And plus, understanding the difference between the androgen sensitive versus not in the vaginal tissue, why it works so good transdermally. And then again, I will say if it doesn't bring you pleasure, why would you put it in the vagina? So like
For sure.
there's there's so much fun with that. Anyway, it is a fun, and again, making people feel comfortable that, I don't want people to suffer, right? I don't want them to suffer like I suffered. And, it is important to continue to educate. So I am so grateful for all the educating you're doing. And I look forward to seeing you at the next conference, but hopefully in person some other time sooner, even.
Yes, we will have to connect.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Maybe we'll go on it. If you come here to Dallas, definitely let me know. We'll do the Camino Dallas, I call it, walk around White Rock Lake. So
Love that. Yes, yeah.
we will do it. Thank you so much for coming on. And to my audience, thank you guys for being here today with us and for sharing this information. It makes a difference. It's your empowerment changes the legacy that you leave feeling. There's so much life left to leave, especially in perimenopause and menopause. Think about the second 50 of our life. What do we want that to look like? So again,
That
I'm
part is
glad.
exciting.
Say that again.
That part is exciting.
That is exciting, right? Like this is, one of the things I got to keep going, Tara, is that I learned from someone on the Camino was that she said, this beyond menopause is a time of refinement, right? Refining, not like a recreating, reinventing yourself, doing all this hard change stuff, but like just refining, like continuing to refine. And so, I think that's a nice way to look at it, to showing up. First of all, we're never done. So yeah, we are refining. So I will leave everyone with the word refining to think about how you can incorporate that into your life, and just taking a perspective of continued growth and development and positivity, and the soul growth that we experience during this time. All right, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tara Scott, for being on the show. And I look forward till next time on the Girlfriend Doctor Show.
Thanks for watching another episode of the Girlfriend Doctor podcast. Check out all the links below for more.